The causes of physical sickness. The Word of God revealed to Jakob Lorber, 1800 to 1864. The Great Gospel of John, Book 10, Chapter 182. I said, for what concerns your question of yesterday, namely about the often long-lasting and severe state of illness that precedes the death of the body, and also about the often very early death of children, this is only allowed by me to improve the people, but this does not mean that it was a decision that came from the almightiness of my will. Look, the first men, who always stayed in the order and simplicity that was shown to them by my Spirit, did really not know about any sickness which precedes physical death. They mostly reached a very high age, became never sick, and they finally fell quietly asleep, and by that their soul did not feel any pain or fear of death. Their food was always the same. And not today this and tomorrow something different. They mostly lived from milk, bread and good, ripe tree fruit. This kind of dish was their food for their body during their whole life. And to quench their thirst, fresh spring water was used. For this reason the nerves of their body were always fed by the same good, harmless substances of the soul, and no bad, impure and therefore harmful soul substance could creep into the body. That is why those men always stayed strong and healthy, spiritually as well as physically. But in this time and also in the much earlier times, look at the many thousands of different delicacies with which people fill their stomach and belly. Then it will immediately become clear to you how in this situation all kinds of unfermented and therefore impure, bad and harmful substances often take possession of the whole human body and gradually torture and torment it more and more. Because such various substances in a human body are then constantly coming into a fight which can be calmed down for a period of time after seeking protection by taking all kinds of herbs and roots that are known through experience and with which they appease the internal soul substance revolution. But such good health does not last long, especially for an old person, unless he for a long time sought protection by taking very simple food for his body. But this does usually not happen because when the people, for what concerns their body, become bearably healthier through a fortunately chosen medicine, most of them will soon like their old delicacies again, become then more sick than they were before, will begin to have trouble and will usually end in a painful way. Look, this is why Moses prescribed the menu for the Israelites who were delivered from the hard slavery of Egypt. Those who strictly lived according to it, remained healthy up to a high age. But very soon many wanted their Egyptian meat pots, and the result was that soon after that they became sick, weak and tired and had to end their earthly life with all kinds of physical sicknesses. Still more sadly in this respect is what happens to children. Firstly, their parents have sinned here and there and have by that filled their body with a great number of bad and harmful soul substances. And thus the child is procreated by a sinful father in the body of an even more sinful mother. Question: how can out of such body come forth a healthy child? And secondly, it is especially during pregnancy that the mother is mostly craving for all kinds of delicacies. And her family members cannot think of a better service than to give in as much as possible to the desire of the pregnant woman. On this occasion, the child receives a second blow against his health. It is not sufficient for the child to come out completely sick from the mother's body, but immediately after that he must be nourished with an even worse mother's milk. This is the second, even harder blow against the basic principles of the health of a child. If a child withstood as fortunate as possible and so-called safe and sound those two blows against health with all kinds of medicine, there is still a third blow against health. The child grows up, of course, becomes cute and adorable for the people around him. Then he all too soon will be greatly spoiled and provided with all kinds of sweets. Because such foolish parents cannot forbid anything to their darling. But what is the result of this? That the child will prematurely spoil and weaken his stomach and the necessary digestive organs. so much so that he will already soon catch all kinds of physical sicknesses and also die early. Many children die already in the body of their mother. A greater number die soon after birth within 2 to 3 years, but most of them from 4 to 12 years. The children who then still reach a riper age must firstly have clever and reasonable parents, must have followed a chaste and healthy life and did not get angry or vexed. In this way they still can come to a very good and bearable health and reach 60, 70, 80 years or older. But then their old age is in itself as good as a sickness, which is still a result of the mother's body and comes mostly also from the sins of their youth. From this short explanation you can see that I absolutely was never the cause of the human physical sicknesses, but the people themselves. And this from the moment that they thoughtlessly and willfully left more and more my commandments and rules which I always gave to them. And they followed their reason and their will, which became more and more darkened and confused by the evil spirits that are in the air, the earth and the water. The elders knew very well that the night outside is no friend of men, but nevertheless, they try to accomplish their big plans of speculation during the night. However, all this kind of excessive speculation is the same as theft and murder that, as you well know, are committed mostly during the night. The earth is big enough to feed 1,000 times more people than the people who live now on the earth. But greed, miserliness and the lust for speculation have bordered and marked the landed properties. And those who are most rich, miserly and powerful often took the biggest and best pieces of land into possession, and they persecuted all those who wanted to resist against it. And so it happened that many possess 1,000 times more of excellent land than is needed for the livelihood of themselves and their family. On the other hand, many hundred of thousands had to go to the coasts of the sea to take out from there their bad and unhealthy food. By that, the navigation was invented, and men sailed far and wide along the shores of the sea and hunted recklessly for the treasures and riches that were hidden in the sea, and so very big nations live at this time in and from the sea. And all this was not the case with the first men on earth. But when this is so, as experience teaches us, how can a somewhat reasonable person think by far that the nations in this time who greatly stepped out of the former order can be and stay as healthy as those first men on earth who, since the body of the mother, never stepped out of that order? The state of sickness which presently precedes the physical death of men is therefore nothing else than the result of the almost complete rejection of the ancient order, but is at the same time also a protector of the healthy soul still present in many, for it takes care that the soul will gradually separate himself from his bad flesh, will by that detach himself from the shackles of the bad soul substances of his body. And when these cause too much damage, he can still in time separate from his body forever with the help of his better spirit of the beyond. After that, he will eternally not wish anymore in the least to enter a body again, except when he would have come out of his body entirely evil, and then, to bitterly revenge himself against the flesh, will try to enter the flesh of a human being who still lives on earth in order to torture it in the most cruel and merciless way, which you could see and experience oftentimes from people who were possessed by evil spirits. And with this, my friend, I have more than sufficiently answered your question of yesterday. Now we will have a closer look at the chasing of the gazelle of today and more of these things.